All right, welcome to another general discussion. My name is Scott. I'm here with Marcus.
Hey.
Today we're just going to talk about the current state of Star Wars Destiny. We're going to talk about what we like about the game, what we'd like to see different in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
We're just going to talk about where we want to see Destiny in the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, look, Destiny's getting a lot of slack at the moment, a lot of flack rather. Online, people a little unhappy about some of the cards that have been printed, some of the interactions they're seeing. Just in general, just copying it. We kind of want to just talk about our thoughts on that. For the record, we love the game. We still think it's in a great spot.
Here at General Games, we do a lot of Destiny events. Yeah. We have a solid group every Wednesday night for our throwdown events. Our Store Champs is coming up. A lot of interest in that. Yep. Here in Melbourne, there's actually quite a lot of Store Champs.
We all play in all the events. We obviously work here at General Games, but any events we can go to outside of General Games to play in, we go to as many as possible.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So we want to talk just a short video, a couple of points. We want to start with the round time.
Yeah.
Currently, when Awakenings first came out, we're seeing decks go 20 or 30 minutes, and that was fine with a 35-minute round time. Some people actually thought that was too short.
Yeah, exactly. But now, when they first released, it was 35 minutes per round, and then the initial reaction to that was, "Oh God, how can I play a card game in 35 minutes? It's not enough time."
As a tournament organizer, it's been excellent.
It's been great. I mean, you get through blast through a tournament in a couple of hours.
We ran 2 tournaments in like 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that said, the game was a little slower during Spirit.
During Awakenings.
Of course, during Awakenings, but was still perfectly reasonably. You could very reasonably get a game in 35 minutes, not feel like you were rushed, and not feel like you were under time pressure.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, the game since Spirit has completely sped up. The game is much faster. There's fewer turns, fewer actions in each turn.
Quite intentionally, mind you.
Yeah, of course.
Lucas himself said he wants the game to go for 3 or 4 turns. Yep. This is what has happened.
Yep, exactly. And they've done that quite well. Obviously, a lot of people tend to have an issue with the speed of the game for various reasons. And I think some founded, some maybe a little unfounded. But
some are justified, yeah.
Yeah, but so our thought on it, and what we'd like to put forward and maybe get a bit of discussion going, is present the idea of maybe playing longer rounds, but best of 3s.
Yeah, so the issue we have currently, we see a lot of the people complaining that, he rolled in his Anakin and got 6 damage and I'm just dead. Yep. Look, that's part of the game. It's a dice rolling game.
It's a dice rolling game.
And you've got to mitigate the odds. Yep. But the huge damage spikes are what's causing the games to end quickly. Yes. And if a best of 3 would smooth out the variance. The variance is basically mitigated. So there will be a game that you might get done. But then there's going to be 2 more, or 1 more at least. There's also plenty of games where you just get the rolls. No one remembers those.
It goes both ways. And that's just the nature of a game. There is variance. There's a variance in any game we play, any card game, any dice game in particular. There's going to be variance, and you can't remove that from the game without changing the game.
Well, it's very positive aspect of all current. Like modern designed games, because if there was no variance, we may as well just go play chess.
Exactly. You play chess, be the better player, and you'll always win.
That's it.
But in this case, variance is very much designed into the game. However, at the moment, in the current state of the game, it's very swingy. It can very much swing a game one way or the other. So our proposal would be playing a best of 3 means that, that one game you get done, cool. Well, now you get another game.
You get 2 more chances to get there. Or 1 more chance if you're unlucky.
Of course. And so obviously you would probably need more than 35 minutes to play 2 rounds. And some decks wouldn't to play 3, to play best of 3 rounds. But
I'd suggest 50 or 60 minutes probably.
Somewhere between 50, 60 seems like the right amount. I mean, tournaments would go longer, but I mean, at the moment, they're not going too long anyway.
Exactly. As a tournament organizer, we expect 50, 60-minute rounds in most games. X-Wing goes for 75 minutes. That one's a little long, but like most tournaments we run, you budget an hour for a round.
Yeah, of course,
you find Destiny's really quick at 35 minutes.
And even as best of 3 rounds, I mean, not every round's going to go to time.
No. You got to finish 2.5 games per round.
Yep. And that's
the average.
Totally reasonable. And then the thing is, your top 8s and your cuts and things don't need to change. I mean, they stay the same way because they're already best of 3.
Well, that's a good point, because currently, if you make the top cut of an event, and we are going to elimination rounds, it's quite jarring for the players. Going from 35 minutes, go get lunch, whatever, straight up to 90 minutes best of 3s. Yep. People feel like they have to spend all 90 minutes, which they probably don't.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. I mean, having more time doesn't oblige you to take more time. It just means you can.
Yeah.
But given more time, but also now the obligation to finish three matches, finish 3 rounds.
Yeah.
games.
Yes.
Even, in per round means that you both get more time to think, but are rewarded, with the not getting blown out by just a single die roll. It doesn't just end doesn't end your tournament because they rolled in and. I'm sure it's happened to all of us where we've played a game and there's just been that one roll and you've gone, well, I'm just done. And that literally, on the spot, you've just lost and there's nothing you can do about it.
And you want those moments to be the exciting story moment. 100%. But you want those moments to be positive and not just ending people's careers.
Yeah, exactly. Because look, it's tilting. People tilt. It's a game and you're naturally going to get, when something like that happens to you, particularly like bigger events, You really feel like you're being robbed of something.
Definitely. And best of three games means that the better players over the day will rise to the top.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Exactly. If you're the better player, if you're playing more games, it just means that you're going to be rewarded by being the better player.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, honestly, that is the first big change that we would propose to drastically changing the feel of the game without changing any rules, without changing any cards, without changing anything too much other than...
We're not here to tell Fantasy Flight how to do their job. They make excellent games and we love facilitating them.
Oh, of course.
And this is literally a logistical change. This is a tournament structure. This is something they could change overnight in a tournament document.
Yep, and it wouldn't... And I don't think... I think everyone... Any change is always going to have some opposition. But I feel that most players who understand the game are going to play a tournament best of three and be like, well, that was just way better. That was much more enjoyable. And you get to play more Destiny.
Yeah, more Destiny is always the goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get to play more.
So with best of threes, we would like to propose at least discuss the potential of a sideboard. For those who don't know, a sideboard is where in different games, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a side deck, and in Magic it has a sideboard. It's where in between your games, like game one, or between game 1 and 2, and between game 2 and 3, you get to change cards out of your main deck and put them in your sideboard and vice versa.
So your deck lists become so currently in Destiny, obviously your deck list is your 30 cards, your characters, and your battlefield.
30 cards, 30 points.
Yep, 30 cards, 30 points, your battlefield, and so that's your deck list, and that's what you submit, and that's what you play. A sideboard would be, in addition to what you already have, a selection of cards that you go into the tournament with in your possession. They can't be changed throughout the tournament. It is fixed, just like your deck is fixed for every game. But you then are able to swap out any number of those cards with cards in your deck between after game 1. So game 1, you have to play the deck that you selected and went in with. Then you play the match, and then you have the option to remove cards that weren't good for you or don't suit the match.
Or maybe replace some average cards with some more specific removal cards or something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it gives you access to cards. So, for example, I mean, the biggest card at the moment that people seem to be having issues with is Fast Hands. I mean, you might be playing a very removal-heavy deck. So it would make sense to maybe get rid of some of those die removal cards because you're just not going to get time to use them. Trim
some of the removal because maybe you don't need it. You just want to see your upgrades and try and race them in a different way because that's how you beat Fast Hands. You don't just lose to it. You got to play differently.
Yeah, and just be a little bit more proactive.
That's it. So whether we have a 6-card sideboard, 8-card sideboard, maybe even 10, which would be crazy. But I want to hear your comments in the section below. We'll talk about many different options for sideboarding and best of threes in general. But we'll move on. Now, I don't know if anybody else has noticed. I'm sure they have. But Palpatine only has 28 points on his stat line.
Yes.
Now, that leaves 2 points in your list for literally nothing. You don't have any... There's nothing you can fit in there. But,
currently, there's nothing.
But we're talking about sideboards. We're talking about other things. What if there were 1 or 2 point characters or supports that maybe aren't very good, but maybe they're a bit more specific, but they also start in play?
Yeah, exactly.
They could have resource costs. They could have just points costs. They could have both. We don't know. So
there's things. It's up in the air. We don't know yet. I mean, obviously, we've started getting the spoilers for Empire at War. Maybe we'll start seeing some, like as you say, some really cheap characters for very few points.
I feel like they're doing that. I feel like they're paving the way to give us ways to spend our points, like we do in X-Wing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they haven't specified 28 points for no reason. That's a conscious decision. Like they could have just said 30 and then that just ties it up, But they've very specifically printed 28 points. So our thought on it is it would be cool to see like maybe, as you say, like a support that starts in play that maybe gives you a little bit more play against some of the decks that currently are a little oppressive, maybe, or you feel that you don't really have much play against. But you can play, some support that allows you to deal with upgrades or allows you to deal with a die or something.
Well, yeah, my first thought is there's a whole bunch of really cool battlefield abilities, but a lot of them are very specific.
Yep.
So if you move some of those abilities onto starting supports that cost points and maybe resources if you decide to play them in your deck.
Yeah, of course.
You could exhaust them to do a battlefield claim effect or something. Because the claim effects are usually medium to good. Yeah. Or nothing. They're usually pretty good or
with the cost. And that's the thing. There's always there's the cost attached to claiming. I mean, sometimes your only play is to claim, but the cost obviously being is you're out of that turn. Having something that you start with in play means that you can have access to these really strong effects and not be punished.
That's exactly right.
Which, hey, adds more skill. It gives you more option to customize a deck and maybe meta a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe games 2 and 3 you can change out the supports you start. Maybe you can stick them in your sideboard or stick them in your deck and pull them out and start with a different starting lineup against different strategies.
So, I mean, look, basically what we've outlined is in our eyes maybe 3 very simple ways without drastically changing the game.
We're changing no rules here, really.
No, there are no rules changes other than the tournament structure, which is which is essentially external to the core rules
of the game. It's a separate document.
Anyway. So we've presented 3 very simple ways in the current layout of the rules to drastically change the game and potentially the way it's played for the better, at least in our opinion.
Yeah. So let's move on and talk about longevity.
Yep.
Destiny is a great game. I want to see it last for a long time.
Of course.
I think we've seen some maybe less than optimal situations in some of the other LCGs, how they get too big too fast.
Yes.
And people just can't buy in anymore. Yep. This is a CCG. This is Fantasy Flight's first CCG.
It is.
And this is brand new territory for them. I really hope they adopt the rotation model that other CCGs have.
Look. I mean, the idea that there's certain cards you don't want to be around forever. You don't always want to have to play around It's a Trap. You don't always want to have to play around certain cards that are just you feel like could be just too punishing for the game, or cards that make certain design space inaccessible.
Well, exactly. It's a Trap's a great example of that. Every time they print a new hero/neutral red gun, that card gets better.
It gets better.
And that's just a byproduct of the game getting bigger and more cards coming out. They're making cards that they originally balanced at one resource. Maybe they get more valuable than one resource, and the game gets a little skewed.
The game design definitely, from a design standpoint, gets harder. It gets much harder to print balanced, fair cards when you have 1,000 cards, 2,000 cards.
Oh, exactly.
In rotation. So the idea of adding some form of current cards rotation means that you might only be playing with at any one point in time 300 different cards, and it also allows certain cards to be reprinted. In terms of like distribution, it's more appealing for the players to own cards because you don't have to go and buy that next set, because you've already got half the cards.
Oh yeah, that's a huge point. Like I've seen a lot of people by running the store. I've seen a lot of people buy this game like an LCG, and that's crazy to me because it's very expensive if you buy all the cards in every single set. If they do, say, a reprint set where they take maybe 80 cards from Awakenings and 80 cards from Spirit Rebellion, slam them together, then the older players don't have to buy that set as heavily. Maybe they sprinkle a few new cards in, so it's appealing to the old players. But it also means that new players can get in at any time. You don't feel like you're behind by not playing from the start.
No, not at all. Not at all. Exactly. And it means it's good in a lot of ways too, because it means that a new release, because of the cards you're losing, the meta will just flip.
Oh, it does.
So a deck that might be completely dominant or really strong, with one new release, it's not the cards that release adds that changes the meta. It's what the cards that you lose.
That's it. Like I don't want to see. I hate functional errata. Like errata on cards makes it confusing for new players. It makes it hard to keep up with. I would just like to see. Hey, look, that deck was really good for a season.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna leave it aside.
Yep.
Maybe there's some sort of like eternal format where you can play all the cards and it gets crazy in like 5 years. But
nuts. Yeah.
But the tournament format, or at least for the short term, should be accessible to every single player who wants to play the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think again, look, I mean that's more of a long term thing. I mean, our first few thoughts, obviously, we're in the current state of the game, whereas that's more of the idea of some kind of rotation or formatting of the game.
Now, I have faith that this is coming because Lucas has hinted towards it in interviews with Team Covenant and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've really set themselves up for it too because you've got cards that clearly look like that's going to be a core card. That's going to be around for a long time. Isolation, use the Force. Like
even Electroshock, just generic flavorless cards.
These generic cards that could fit into any deck as long as they're on color, that will always be relevant to the game, that don't have, any out there rulings or any issues that just work. Those kind of cards will be around, at least we feel, as your core cards. And then it's the flavorful cards that get thrown in to change up what decks see play.
Yeah, like It's a Trap is a flavor card.
Exactly.
It is a very good one, but it's a flavor
good card. But you don't want to be playing around
Lightsaber Throw is another. Like it's sort of it's more...
it's an aggressive, burnish kind of card, but you don't necessarily want that there forever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's cards such as that definitely feel good now, but they're definitely not something you want.
We might even see two things. We might even see flavors shift on current cards. Like you might see Electroshock printed in a year or two with a different character on the artwork. Like lots of droids can Electroshock.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Doesn't have to be Chopper.
That's the other thing. So your alternate, your further printings of existing cards can come out with different artwork.
And you can also functionally reprint cards. Like we could have another card that's like Electroshock.
Yes.
It's exactly the same, but with a different name. So if they do some crazy Eternal format, you can start playing 4 Electroshocks.
Yeah, exactly. And then so if they're same deal, but you can do that with the cards that maybe people currently feel like are too strong. They could print like a toned down version of It's a Trap.
And rotate out the original.
Or they could print a slightly better version of a card which currently doesn't see much play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Maybe knock a resource off it. Maybe just change it enough so it's not just a better version.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
100%. And as you said, it just means that every release means you're considering new decks, new combinations, old decks that might have been good once upon a time can become good again.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you might see like a return. Like some people like Vader Raider might be good now and it might stay good.
Yep.
But it might just leave the format for a year or two, and then it might come back.
Suddenly come back. It's got a new card that made it really good. Or the deck that was oppressing it quite strongly loses the card that was doing that.
Or they simply just rotate one of its characters and put it back in the game later.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I think it's going to be great.
It leads to a lot more freedom in design of the game. It means balancing becomes much easier.
Yeah.
You have ultimate control over what cards are going to be paired with what cards because you can just take it out of the game. You can be like, well, that card's not going to be here in 6 months, a year.
Bottom line, like, if they make any cards that they feel are too strong or are mistakes, they can just rotate them out in a year. Yep. So we only have to deal with them for a short period of time.
That's the thing, 100%. And again, obviously that much longer term thinking. But previous to that, our previous points, obviously, just to wrap it up, we discussed the idea of maybe doing longer best of 3 per round, and then given. If that is implemented, then you then have the access to the idea of a sideboard or like alternate cards you can swap in and out, and then obviously making use of the extra points in your list because not every list is exactly 30 points.
Well, that's it.
And then obviously long term, the idea of rotation or whatever. So look, we'd honestly love discussion. Like we're talking about Destiny all the damn time. Like we spend most of our time here at work discussing our decks. Discussing the tournament that we just played in, discussing the meta, talking to customers, talking to online. We love discussion, and we definitely want to hear feedback from the community. What are people's thoughts? Like, do people feel that our suggestions are just completely outlandish and wrong, or do people agree with us?
Yeah, chuck your opinions in the comment section below. Hit us up on our Facebook page, Facebook/General Games. And you can check us out on our YouTube channel, which is probably where you're watching this.
100%.
And we also go live occasionally on Twitch.
We will go live as often as it's warranted. We actually obviously have the store champs coming up.
Yeah, so that will definitely be live. So check that out. All the links are in the description.
Yep.
And so
if you're local to Melbourne, Australia, come in.
If you're not local, fly in.
Fine.
I'll accommodate.
Yeah, why not?
Anyway, guys, it's been Scott and Marcus talking about the current state of Destiny, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, next one.